exploring the topic of agility, a buzzword, right? How many of you, show of hands, how many of you think this is a buzzword today and don't care too much for it? Show of hands. Honestly. Okay, I have a fantastic audience. I think my job is done. But it is true. Many of us do still think about some of these terms as buzzwords that are happening out there, a little distant from us, and they're just concepts. So today my attempt is going to be to get it as real for you, as close to home as possible. You with me on that? Okay, let's give it a shot. I'm going to start with a story. Alright? It was 2006. I just had a baby and I was returning back to work. I was returning back from maternity leave to my team of the last 8 years. It was a team where we were a retail banking product team. I was an engineer, tech lead, you know the works. And I was coming back. And I suddenly realized I don't have a role anymore. My role was not available and I had to find a new one. I don't know if you've been in that situation. I'm sure many of you have. There was instant panic. There was a sense of abandonment because all the friends I had they belonged to that team. I've been there for 8 years, right? I do not know anything beyond that particular team in the organization. I do not have enough awareness of how to navigate this now. What next? Who am I going to go to? My connections were all in that team. Truly, I was the expert in that team. I spent all my time focused on my clients and my delivery. But 3 months later, it didn't matter when I came back. Everything had changed, right? I'm sure many of us have faced this kind of a situation. But of course, fighters as we are, 1 month later, with much difficulty, I made new acquaintances and I found myself a role now. I found a role as a business analyst in the UK for a prime client of ours. Very happy, but actually I was more distressed now because this meant personal change, much more personal change because I've got to ask my husband to leave his job and then travel with me with my 2 kids, including the new baby, right? That was a tough one. But somehow even that, we worked it out. We thought, okay, this is going to be good for us. We worked out that this is going to be beneficial. And it was Easter Sunday, 2006. I landed in London. The next 2 months that ensued were probably the hardest 2 to 3 months of my life. Why do I say that? I was faced with challenges galore. It was a new role, and I had no training or knowledge of what they called a business analyst. This is 2006, remember that. No knowledge of what a business analyst role really meant. New clients, team. I was no longer the expert, I was a novice, right? The discomfort that comes with that. My comfort zone completely gone. And to make matters worse, my personal life was in disarray. New city, new home. The family was trying to adjust, right? There were days when I would feel like I was going down this downward spiral, or sometimes you just stuck in quagmire. There was a voice in my head that kept saying, this was a bad decision, I shouldn't have done this. And there was no way forward. I found myself just stuck. But typically in these situations, something comes out to pull us out, right? And in this case, I was fortunate. I found that my family needed me more than me being just wallowing in my own misery. And that was good because we as women tend to see and sense what's happening around us and we tend to respond to that. And that one thing allowed me to pull myself back up. I was forced to pick up the pieces again. I know many of us have faced this, but this was very critical. In the next 2 to 3 months, I actually started tackling one thing at a time. First I sorted out my own stuff, which meant that I had to start building trust with my new clients, my team, start building confidence in the new solutions, products that I was working on. And then I started focusing on the joy of living in London, a new city, and visiting new places with my family, right? So 6 months passed and suddenly I started feeling I was back. Yeah, we've been there, right? All of us. But those 6 months taught me a lot. That role, that trip changed my life forever. The skills, the experiences I learned changed my career path altogether. My financial situation changed, rightfully so. You're doing an on-site trip, that happens, we've all been there. But the biggest learning for me was the lesson that there's a burning need for agility in our professional and personal lives. Of course, at that time, I didn't really give it a label called agility, but I made a promise to myself. This was 17 years ago. I made a promise that I would no longer be complacent, and every 2 to 3 years, I would go seek new opportunities, new roles, new team, whatever it was. And above all, every couple of months, I would actually put myself through a new training or learning something new. Hard skill, soft skill, it didn't matter. It was just that notion of, going through the works of absorbing something new. And even interviewing, so that, you start getting comfortable with this notion of change. The rest is history, my friends. If you see my experience, you'll see that every few years I've had a new job or a new role or a new project, maybe in the same company, it didn't matter. What I started noticing, and this is my experience from the last 17 years, there was always a pattern. Every time I made the change, there was a pattern. And soon I started detecting that there's a method that I was adopting, right? And not because I had planned it that way. When I look back in the rearview mirror, I can see there was a method. And I acquired those tips over the different changes I did. And today, I'm hoping that I can share some of those tips with you so that it's real for you, so that it's not just a concept, it's not just a buzzword, and you know how to be ahead of change so that you can deal with it better. The biggest advantage for me, every time I made these changes, was the fact that soon change started becoming exciting. It was no longer feared by me. I hated change in the beginning, as you saw in my story. I started finding it exciting, and the best part was, every time I changed, I could reinvent myself. The me that you see today, you wouldn't recognize against the person I was in 2006. Every change allowed me to reinvent a little bit of myself, be it about how I speak, how I execute on projects, how I lead people, how I write, how I communicate. It was a ton of different things, but it evolves you. So I got to reinvent myself, and that to me was the personal gain of all of this. So, if there are people like me in the room, this story may have not still convinced you that you still need to make an effort to build agility, right? I'm usually like that. I'm tough to convince. So today I thought maybe if 25% of you are now convinced, yeah, this makes sense, our story, yeah, it resonates. The rest of you, let's see what we can do. I'd like us to take a look at why should we be even doing this, right? Why is it important today, we as women in technology? Let's look at the compelling case for agility, right? So sometimes when I'm telling it to you, it does not seem as important. But when an expert says it, so it's Bill Gates, you've all seen this saying. He says success today requires the agility and the drive to constantly rethink, reinvigorate, react, or I would say respond and reinvent. But why? Why is that needed? Let's look at some data. If you Google it, you'll get tons of data that will convince you about what's going on around us, right? And all of us know it, but sometimes we need somebody else to just restate it for us. So let's look at some data about how the pace of change in technology has actually impacted us, our lives. I've tried to just pick like 2 to 3 very important data points that I thought in this limited time can, tell our compelling story. So the pace of change. The first one, this is funny actually. The cost of computer memory and storage, we all know this, right? Look at that, it has dropped 100 times every 10 years. So which means, in the 1990s when I was going to college, if I had to buy 1 terabyte of storage, it would cost me $1 million. Today, it's less than $100, right? Just think about that, the scale of that. Another one here for you. Moore's Law. Everybody remembers this from college days? Yeah? The number of transistors in an IC doubles every 2 years. What does that mean? The computing power on an IC chip has increased 10,000 times since 1990. So basically, if you just even put the staggering numbers aside, what does that even mean? The cost of technology has gone down, the storage has gone down, even the computing power that you would have got for the same value, it has just exponentially grown, right? What does that mean? If you or I wanted to actually start innovating, to start building technology solutions, it's so much easier. You don't need like the big giants like IBM and Microsoft. Are they the only ones who can now create technology? No. We are proof of that. We work in startups, we are independent, workers, we work in big companies, small companies, it doesn't matter. We sit in our homes, we're building technology. So much advancement. This kind of scale of computing power and storage has also led to another thing which we are all aware of, which is the growth of AI. Right? Look at this. The computation that was used to train AI systems, it's grown 100 million times since 2000. And it's evident in our lives today, right? The kind of solutions. Every little thing today is powered by AI. The data, the power of processing the data and telling the insights that we need from it. But is it just the advancement of technology? No. There's something else going on here. There's a virtuous cycle actually, wherein it's also driving a difference in the demand amongst us consumers, amongst us as users, right? And with the advancement of technology, something else that has happened to us is this. Mobile usage. Before 2000, I don't know how many of you remember, I definitely didn't have a mobile phone, right? And so 10 times since 2000, all right? And compounding that, the internet usage, smartphones and internet usage in general. This is just India statistics that I'm showing you here about mobile and internet. 10 times since 2000. And just think about what that means if you go and look into the future. This is exponential growth that we're seeing in just the last 20 years or so. So this means that there is an increased access to technology solutions, right? Which means increased demand. We all want that exceptional user experience. We want that at the tip of our fingertips. And that low cost of technology compounded by the demand for digital services is actually doing something magnificent in the world around us. It's causing a lot of innovation, evolution of technology solutions, which is in turn changing business ecosystems and in turn affecting us as consumers. Our social constructs are also changing how we behave, right? How we choose what to buy, how we choose where to go, how to travel, right? Who we live with, who are our connections. Everything is being driven by technology today. And just to make it a little more real for us, right? For us at work, there's something massive going on around us. So, of course, this is just an amalgamation of everything you just heard. Look at the change at different levels for people like us who are working. We spoke about the low cost of technology and the demand for digital services. Now, that's evolving business models. We're all familiar with this, yes? We had retail stores. They went physical first, then online, then hybrid. We have aggregation models like Uber, Airbnb, no longer the physical ownership model that you're seeing in businesses. Evolution there. Then you saw evolving business architecture. Businesses started moving from creating products to platforms with open architecture, encouraging suppliers to partner, innovate rapidly. Now, where's all this innovation going? It's giving us way more technology solutions than we would have ever thought of. But if so much of evolution in technology solutions and innovation is happening, could it have stayed with the same work methodology we had like 17, 20 years ago, where there was one project manager who makes the decisions and tells a 100-member team what to do, and they throw out a solution once in 6 months, 10 months? No, that wouldn't work. So we had evolving work methodologies. Agile came in, DevOps came in, and people who do the work are making the decisions, right? Smaller teams, they're making iterative releases to customers who give feedback loops, data analytics being baked into it. So work methodologies evolved. And what did that do to all of us? Our roles evolved. We have new roles now. We have Scrum Masters, Product Owners, full stack engineers, and the room will light up with this one, right? You've come across all of this. It's all we stay static? No. Even if we choose to, we can't. Because if we do, we're going to be left behind. We're just missing out on the excitement. We're going to lose our roles. We're going to lose our confidence. We can't ride this exciting wave of change. Right? And that, my friends, is that compelling case for agility for us, women in technology, or anyone in the world today. Is that good? Are we convinced? Alright, so then now, I think I'd like to share with you, let's just try and demystify, and I'd like to share with you how you could then build agility. If we now believe this has to be done, how can we make it so easy? Some of us have figured it out for sure in the room, but there are plenty of us who don't know there's a formula for this. So, what is agility really? Right? Whenever we thought of agility, we think of sports, right? That's how we've always grown up. We know that when we talk about athletics, for instance, agility is nothing but the ability to change body direction rapidly. And you need what for it? You need reflex, you need balance, you need coordination, and you need skill. Familiar with this, right? Very familiar territory. So what does this have to do with agility in work and life? It's not very different, actually. In fact, it's the same. It's the same. It's the ability, or rather the reflex, to be able to pick up stimuli from the environment and choose what to respond to in a timely manner. And how do you respond? You need balance, you need coordination, and you need skill. It's the same, but it still sounds very conceptual, right? It sounds very wishy-washy. What does it really mean for us? So if a coach was actually helping an athlete develop or build agility, what would they do typically? What do coaches do? They would give you like, okay, these are the 3 to 4 things that you need to work on, and then they leave you to practice, right? I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to give you the 3 to 4 levers or tips that you need to practice to build agility. And it's all in that one sentence. With me? So it's very simple. It's 4 levers, and this is straight from the method that I was talking about that I found myself following all those 17 years, right? And they are interdependent actually, the 4 levers. Let's start with the top left, which is reflex. Exactly what you saw with the athlete. There's nothing different, nothing new here. It's reflex. And what is reflex? It's that sense. You need to hone. I say hone because it takes time to build that sense. Because like me, you could have been burying your head in the sand and just waiting for things never to go wrong. But no, you've got to build that ability to sense what's happening around you and decide what you want to pick up. There's millions of stimuli around us all the time. We'll have to decide, we'll have to develop a sense for what matters, what does not matter. What's going on in my organization, what's going on in the world. There's a financial crisis going on as it is right now. Economic crisis, geopolitical changes, pandemic, how is it going to impact me? The sense to be able to say which ones do I need to actually imbibe, which ones do I just need to know and be at peace with. That's reflex. I'll connect it back to my story. What was the incident there that you felt that I could have done? If I had reflex, I would have handled it better. Do you remember the time when I said that, when I came back and they said no role? And I was like, oh my God, what am I going to do now? The reflex I should have had would have been that when I was in that team, I still kept aside time to build connections beyond that team. Know what's happening in the organization. Know that 3 months later you're going to have to build a few new skills and come back and pick and know how to navigate that. That sense, that is reflex for you. The second one is balance. Very, very important. This is so critical, right? Because this is about us. This is our mental agility and openness to be able to adapt. It's adapt our own mindset, our behaviors, even our relationships. Connect this to my story. You heard me talk about the fact that I felt like I was stuck. I felt like I kept telling myself I'm a novice, I'm not an expert anymore. This was the wrong thing to do, right? What was that doing to me? I was so closed. I was just so closed. I was stuck in my old world, and it was just pushing me down. It was not helping me move forward. So openness to know that when there is change, and like I said, those 17 years, every time I changed, I knew there was a pattern. You know that 6 months is going to be hard. There's going to be a trough, and then there's going to be that rise. It's your own little S-curve that any business always follows, right? And once you know that, there's that openness to say that, yeah, I'll go through this, and then I'll climb back up. And then came coordination. Now, this is something that I won't generalize, but a lot of women, including myself, underestimated. Ability to navigate an environment and muster the support you need to make these transitions. If you want to stay ahead of change, if you picked up some signals, you know there's a change happening in your organization and you want to be able to be ready, or you want to know how to move forward, you need to know, you need to have connections, you need to understand, you have to be organization savvy. You have to build those skills, right? This is about that. Related back to my story. This is where my connections could have helped me. This is where when I landed in London also, if I had a few friends and a few people that I reached out to, had a support system that would have helped me, know how to navigate the BA world, the new city, all of that. Very key skill. And finally, it's about skill. Never underestimate the power of the skill that you need to manage any change. Be it soft skills, there are a lot of transferable skills. And the more you learn, another thing I learned about, doing so much change, learning so many things every time was your learning agility improves. It's like building a muscle. The more you exercise, it gets stronger. It's the same thing. You'll start learning faster and it becomes less scary and it becomes enjoyable, right? So it is these 4 levers, my friends, that I'm giving you my humble experiences from 17 years that might help someone in the group here. So I will leave you with this for you to practice. Be open, right? That's the most important, that's us. Develop, build, reflex, and ride the wave. Thank you.